and welcome to the Not Your Normal Life show. I'm Naomi.
And I'm Aaron.
And this is where we talk about
the not so normal lives that we all live. Let's go. Welcome back.
Hello.
You guys, we are feeling so good, so excited to be doing today's episode 31.
31.
31. That's been crazy.
That's a lot of
We are
episodes.
still going strong, people. So we're so glad that you guys, I keep saying that every episode. So glad you guys are coming back. I'm Aaron.
It's true, though. And I'm Naomi.
And this has been Not Your Normal Life. We'll see you later. Episode 31's done.
30 seconds long.
So yeah, in the last episode at the end, we started talking and we're like, oh, we got to do this actual episode when I talked about trying to pursue ministry and different opportunities. And so today we're just going to talk about that of like how we, like if you're listening, you're Christian. If you're not, awesome. We're glad that you're here joining us. But as those that are serving in ministry, want to serve in ministry, but in the church, it's really hard not to want to pursue things and want to put yourself out there. Like I was saying in the last episode, I was trying so hard to impress leadership around me to be given the positions that I wasn't qualified yet to do. Like I wanted to be up on stage leading worship at camp at 19 years old, and I was not in any way, shape, or form ready to be leading worship for a camp.
Well, don't put that on you either. Cause
No, I don't think I was at that time.
Yeah, sure.
I had very limited guitar skills. I'm a better singer now than I was then. So it's just, I've had to grow into where I'm at now
that makes sense.
in my abilities, and I don't think that would have been conducive for a camp environment because I couldn't lead at that time.
Yeah, well, and this conversation kind of spun out of our last episode, like Aaron was saying, and just like the biggest thing that I'm realizing now is to move forward in ministry, and not just ministry in the church, but like ministry God has called you to do in life. You need to have the favor of God on your life.
Oh, yeah.
And
are we so real about that? Like we have been a part of that of showing that when we have not been fully in God's favor in this situation.
What we want to talk about is like for the longest
say it.
time, I thought that if I just worked harder, if I served at every single event that the church had, if I was like, just giving it my all, I would like make it, and God would see me and appreciate me and give me positions that pastors would recognize me and grant me all these super awesome ministry jobs.
If I paint 100 faces at that face painting, I have God's favor.
Exactly. But that's so not true. Pastor Mike Todd compares self-help and being motivated to kingdom business and kingdom plans that God has ordained. And he actually says that between the two, one will last and the other will fail. Ooh. And the self-help mentality, the self-motivated aspiration, like go-getter type of person, which to be honest, I'm really attracted to that. And I'm attracted to like...
Why do you think she married me? Oh!
But for myself, I'm really attracted to like that like boss girl mentality of like, you get it, girl, you work hard.
Hard, work hard.
And if you work harder, you're going to get it. And when you're tired, work out anyway. And like that stuff like does motivate me.
Oh, yeah.
But in this sermon, Pastor Mike was comparing that to, okay, yeah, you can be motivated all day, but that's not going to last because it's you. And what's going to last is the kingdom business, and what God has ordained for your life and God's favor on your life is way, way, way more secure than anything you're going to do with your own personal strength. And that is everything. And what's so sad is the last 10 plus years of my life, I didn't know that. I thought I had to work hard for everything. Turns out I just need to trust Jesus and pray and ask him for his favor on my life, and doors will open if God is giving me that favor.
Exactly. You don't have to be the one doing everything. You don't have to be the one. In my case, I was like running media, sound, worship, helping with the bulletins, helping with this, helping with that, helping with this. I at the at the end of it all, in our last church, I was probably doing like 10 or 15 different jobs. We were a small church, but I was doing it because I felt that I had to do it in order to receive the blessings of God.
Right. And we weren't, we were doing it because it was a small church. And if you've been a part of a small church, the same, like
everybody
5 people do like everything. But yeah, we also
didn't know how to say no.
Yeah. And we also did think that would open doors for us in ministry. And we thought that, you know, if we can prove that we have this long resume of stuff we've done in a church, we'll get hired.
Yeah, we'll get hired as senior pastors at another church. We'll get our own church, or someone will pick us up on their staff, and we'll get paid full time because look how many things they can do. We can use them, and we got so burned out.
Yeah.
And we were not listening to God. We were listening to God, I believe, at the beginning, but near when we were at the end, it really wasn't. We weren't listening as much to God as we should have been listening to. I believe our intentions were good, and I believe God put us in the positions we needed to be in, but then we bit off more than we could chew.
Yeah, I agree. Having that favor that God has put on your life will open those doors for you, and it shouldn't feel forced. Like, it shouldn't feel like you have to work super hard to get these ministry doors to open. Like, I do believe that when God calls you to specific positions, he will make a way for you.
And that's where I was going to talk about Mike Todd, actually. You talked about his sermon. I'm going to talk about Mike Todd and the fact that when he took over the church, he was younger than us, super young, and God told him really early that you were going to get this building that they're now in. And he just was like, you're crazy, God, that this is what's going to happen. But he listened to God, and he wasn't a man that should have been in the position that he should have from his past. And he's talked about that. But God has blessed him and ordained him, and he walked into it. And every step of the way, God kept opening the door, because he kept just letting God lead the way. And that's what I love about Mike Todd, is he just literally, every door opened up, he'd take a step. God said, yep, and he'd keep going, and then he got the building. And now they're up to an entire complex because he literally had faith that God told him to go through those doors, and he took the steps.
Exactly.
And it was God wanting him to do it, not Mike Todd wanting to do it. And because God wanted it, God did it through him. And that's what I love about Mike Todd.
Agree. Also, in the Bible.
The Bible time now.
I believe this is in 1 Samuel 16. I love this story because this is about Samuel is going to like go find the next king, and he goes to Jesse's house, and Jesse has like a bajillion sons, like they all did back then. And Samuel's there, and he's like looking at all the sons, and he walks in there and he sees this one son, and he says, surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. The Lord looks at the heart.
Oh, right there. The Lord looks at the heart.
And
I love that.
Continuing on, basically Samuel looks at all of Jesse's sons, and God is telling him, like,
Jesse's sons.
Jesse's sons. He's like, God is like, these are not, none of these guys are qualified or anointed. He specifically says anointed. So then Samuel says, are these all the sons you have? And Jesse says, they're still the youngest. He's out tending to the sheep. And Samuel says, send him here. We will not sit down until he arrives. And basically, if you just keep reading, you find out that David shows up, and that's the guy that God has anointed and God's favor is on. Yep. And he wasn't even there. That's my favorite part, is like David literally wasn't even in the room, and God waited for him to show up to give him the position.
The room where it happened. The room where it happened wasn't in the room. Okay.
And now he's in the room where it happened.
So I think the crazy thing is David was anointed years before he even would take the throne. Years that God's all like, Saul was the king at the time, and Samuel went out to find the next king. But it wasn't for years until David became king.
Yeah.
And in that, God knew what David was going to do. The sins that David was going to commit.
Oh, I see.
And God still had favor on David.
Yeah.
And I think that's so much powerful. God knows what you're going to fail at. God knows what you're going to succeed at. and he sees the success and what you're going to bring, and he sees that and he wants to use that. And he's going to forgive you at the end of the day, any failures that you may have along that journey.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that's so important to let God lead the way.
Yeah.
And when you're in those times that you fail, you need to come back to God and say, God, what am I doing wrong? What do I need to come back to? And David had to repent. David had to do so much to be back in God's favor. But with us, we're kind of lucky because we have the blood of Jesus Christ over us.
Yeah.
That the forgiveness is immediate. We just have to come before him. But I think this is so important when you get into ministry. With David's situation, David was just tending the flock. Didn't want to be in ministry. He was just doing his job.
Yeah, and he's like the baby of the family.
He was the baby of the family.
Working.
Yeah.
I just think that's...
He was just a baby. The guy was buff. The guy could kill bears.
Like
the
the
guy could
baby
kill
son.
wolves. Yeah. This guy was buff.
I just think, like, after I've read that story like 1,000 times, right? Like,
Yeah.
everyone knows who David is. You learn about him in Sunday school. If you went to Sunday school in the 90s, you saw him on a flannel graph.
Oh, yes, I
At
did.
the Baptist church, at least. That's what we did.
Well, every church.
Oh, I
kids
thought it was just a
ministry had
Baptist thing.
No, every Foursquare does that too.
Does Foursquare have tongues of fire on the flannel graphs?
Tongues of fire.
Is that a yes?
I'm pretty sure.
I hope so.
Oh yeah, it comes onto the top of their heads. You put a little
Nice.
fire on the top of their heads, and
But so I've heard.
Back to
I
the
mean,
point.
we're familiar with the David story. If you've been around church long enough, you've probably heard of him. But I've read that story before, and I don't know. Lately, like, it's just really, really sticking out to me that David was anointed by God. He had God's favor, and if you have God's favor on your life like that, you don't have to even be around for opportunities to show up, because God has called you specifically for doors to be opened.
Yep.
And you just have to be in God's presence.
Yep.
And you have to be with God, and he will make ways for you that you never could, and no man could open for you.
Also, I think it's really important to note that, like, when we talk about doing God's will, that doesn't mean becoming a pastor. That doesn't necessarily mean you get a youth ministry or a youth pastor or the children's ministry, or you're working the 9-to-5 job in the church and getting paid by the church to do the stuff in the church. When God wants, because it says that God called us all to ministry. God has called us all to serve him.
Yeah.
But when he calls you to serve, you need to go and serve him in the aspect of what he wants you to do, whether that's within the church itself, the building, or if your ministry is in another form. Like, we're trying to wrestle with that, guys, of trying to figure out, is this podcast becoming our new ministry? Are we supposed to be within the four walls of the church working 9 to 5 in the building, or is God calling us into a different area about how we do our ministry? And that's, we need to remind ourselves as Christians that it's not just about the building. Like, yes, we do need people to serve within the building, but your ministry is bigger than the building.
Yeah.
Your ministry is bigger. Your opportunities to serve God is bigger. And we need to listen to God and stop having this aspect of, well, I'm supposed to be a youth pastor, so I'm going to wait on God until God gives me that. You know, you're no longer listening to God. You're demanding God give you.
I see.
And so I think we need to be careful. And that's the thing I love about David is David wasn't even in that situation. He wasn't even there. And then he walks back into the room where it was happening, and and he gets anointed and covered in oil and a ram's horn. And he's basically like, you're going to be the next king of Israel. And he's like, I was just hanging out with my sheep. What is going on? Dad, what did you just put me up to? Dad, what is going on? Who is this guy in our house?
Yeah. And I think being in a position, which David, I don't really know if he knew what was coming for him, but if we as individuals can rely on trusting God and having God make the way and God have the plans, that does require a lot of faith and trust for us.
Yeah.
Because that's again, something I struggle with, because I like to control things and I can control my environment.
Does she like to control things, people?
Aaron, stop it.
She loves to control everything.
Don't make me mad. I'm in a good groove right now.
Well, we just talked about this in our few podcasts ago. So if we want to get done with the podcast, we can sit down and talk about why you're angry.
Oh, sweetie. But if you have God's favor on your life, it does take, or if you're contending for that and you're asking for God's favor and for him to make, the ways straight for you and doors to open, it does require a lot of faith and trust on your end, because now you are in no control, which is hard for me because one of the reasons we got so burnt out with ministry is I could easily say yes to everything.
Oh, yeah.
And I could easily control the situations I was in because I was in charge. And if I didn't want to do something, it's just, flopping schedules around and everything is in my control and it's great. But if I actually listened to God and God said, you know what, I don't want you to do all these things. I want you to quit everything and just be with me until you can get your life figured out.
Which we've done.
And that's not as easy because then you're not in control. You're waiting for God to open up those doors. And that's the way it should be, but it is not always so easy.
No, I'm like, as you're saying that, I'm like replaying like moments in my head where I kept taking roles and taking responsibilities, and our pastor's like, Aaron, you sure you can handle all this? Are you sure? Sure. I was in this mindset like I have to take it all. I have to take it all. I have to be in control. I have to be in control. If I'm not in control, then I'm not being God's favor. I'm not showing myself to other people that I'm capable of doing this. But inside, I was just like, I can't keep doing this. I'm so tired.
I'm tired.
I'm exhausted. But I'll keep doing it because I want God's favor. I want God's favor. I want to see change. And like I said, in a few podcasts ago, I keep saying this. I admitted to my pornography issues. My problem with pornography started in growing because my stress and my exhaustion. I started turning to pornography to fill and have my mind blanked out, which wasn't right, which was wrong. And I fell out of God's favor because I was sinning now, and I was no longer. But then at the same time, I was trying to serve God and do ministry while I was fallen out of His favor.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's just, guys, you have to be careful when you walk into these steps and you walk into serving God too.
Also, you don't know whose spot you're taking.
Yes.
Dude, I didn't even think about that till right now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you don't know who God wanted to actually be there.
If you're taking all the opportunities and God doesn't want you to have them, not only are you going to burn yourself out, but you are literally taking opportunities that are ordained for someone else.
Ooh.
And that is not a spot I want to be in anymore. And I've been in that. I feel like I've probably been in that spot and I didn't know it.
Oh, I feel like I've been in that spot too.
Yes, open doors are there, and pray about them before you open.
You should definitely pray.
Yeah. And again, maybe God is calling you to serve like crazy, and He'll give you the strength and the endurance to just do it all. Maybe that's your story. But there's also going to be stories similar to ours where we, did too much, and, I don't know whose spot we stole. Yeah. And just because there is an opportunity and an open door doesn't mean it's for you.
Exactly.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we don't know how many people because I don't know if I was just like, oh, I don't think anybody can do this. I can only do this. Mm-hmm. And that was my mindset. And it's just like, how many people saw us doing that and it turned them off from wanting to do ministry because we were taking everything.
That's a good point.
They're like, what's the point of me even trying to serve if these people are just doing it all?
Yeah. And I've actually had that other opposite way where I've seen growing up, especially like in youth group, like I wanted to serve in different things because I was excited and I loved youth group, and I would see, certain kids doing multiple things. And I was like, man, I kind of want to do that. I kind of don't think it's fair. I don't get a chance, and life isn't fair, whatever. But there are, for every open door, again, it's just considering, should the same people be doing all of these things? Or is there room at the table for other people to come and also help out?
I think the also thing is we need to be praising others and like lifting other people up. I talked about like not self-gratitude and stuff like that in the last episode, but you see someone in a position that you really want and you're mad that you're not being able to do that. Like I always bring up camps as the biggest thing. Like I always wanted to be the drummer at camp, or I wanted to be the guy singing in camp. Like I wanted to be that guy, but God wanted that person to be there. And I would be mad because I'm like, no, God, I was supposed to be there. Why am I not there? And then I'd have resentment towards that person.
Yeah, that's true.
And we should be lifting people up because God put those people in there we should then be lifting them up in prayer and saying, hey, great job that God's using you in the way that you're being used.
That's good, yeah.
And when we do that, it gives confirmation to those people knowing that God had put them in those positions, because you don't know if those people are deciding whether or not they even want to be in ministry anymore,
that's a good point.
if they want to serve anymore because they feel so burned out, or they feel like nobody's hearing what they're doing. But giving those words of affirmation to them is so, so important. So it's like, it's this same thing that we need to do, is listen to God, but then also when you see someone getting the position that you thought you needed to have, lifting them up in prayer and telling them when they've done a really good job at serving God, and God's ordained them and God's moved them. So,
and even if you serve in something small, like, again, you don't have to be like
cleaning toilets.
You don't have to be the next Chad Veach. You don't have to be the next Billy Graham or whoever. But
I love what Chris and Adele said when they were down at Aptos at the church down there. He said they always started with cleaning toilets.
Nice.
And if you can clean a toilet, you can serve God.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that you're not so big that you can't clean a toilet. And I've seen senior pastors clean toilets. I've seen worship directors clean toilets. It's just saying, even the lowest job is important in the eyes of God.
You know what was my favorite thing to do in youth group when I would volunteer?
What was your favorite?
Back in the day when we had projectors.
Oh my gosh, the little slides.
I got to move the lyrics for the worship song. And
was this when you were in Baptist?
No, this was at Foursquare.
At Crossfire?
I was in middle school.
Crossfire.
That was my favorite thing. And then I'd always get paranoid because when you change songs, you got to make sure you're putting that down the right way on that projector. Otherwise, the word
would you be the one that would kind of slowly bring it up?
Yeah.
And then you made it look so cool and then back down to show
we had a little piece of paper that would box the words.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
That was pretty fun.
Even when I did that at such a young age, and this is a big point for making sure you get young people into positions. And something as simple as that I literally just told you is so silly, but I remember it because I was volunteering at the church that I loved. And I knew that it was a super silly thing. And I'm literally just moving lyrics on a page.
Now it's so stressful to do media.
That's true. It's a lot different now. But even having younger people, don't just be so self-obsessed with yourself and what you're doing for God, but look for other people that you can bring up behind you, because it is important, especially this next generation. I feel like the older generations are getting, the less church the next generation is. And we need to make sure that we're bringing these young people that are already in church into positions where they can also serve in church.
Only if God calls them.
No, yes. Back to
don't
the
just
point.
pull
Back
them
to
into
the main
it.
Point.
Yeah, don't just pull them in and say, you're going to do slides. You're going to learn the soundboard.
No, that's when you say God's favor is on you to do the slides.
Do it right.
And don't mess up.
Don't mess up.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, all that to say is, going back to that David story, it just has opened my eyes to realizing we don't have to try so hard.
Yeah.
Again, it's having that relationship with Christ and telling him that you'll do anything for him and you will serve in the way he's called you and created you to do so, and letting him open those doors for you.
Amen.
I think is everything.
I think that's, it's super important with that. I was going to say something, but I didn't know, but.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
giggly.
Yeah, I'm a little giggly, but I'm just so glad that you guys have stayed with us for this time. Again, listen to God, be in God's favor, and do what God calls you to do. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Naomi.
This has been Not Your Normal Life. We'll see you next time.